God, please don't let this happen to me. Obiora, please, I am carrying your child. I swear on my mother's grave.
The doctor said it himself, your womb is dead. Chisom, my mother showed me the results.
That result is a lie. Somebody paid that man. Feel my stomach, please. Just feel.
Pack your things. My mother is coming back by 4 o'clock and I do not want her to meet you here.
The morning Mama Obiora arrived in the compound with a brown envelope, Chisom was in the kitchen frying akara, humming quietly to herself, one hand resting softly on her stomach, the way a woman does when she is keeping the most beautiful secret in the world. She was 3 months along. She had not told Obiora yet. She had wanted to wait until after his promotion celebration, wanted to give him the news wrapped in a perfect moment, the kind of moment a woman holds in her heart for the rest of her life. She had even bought a small card from the shop near the Wat Market. She had written 4 words on it in her careful handwriting. God answered my prayer. She did not know that on the other side of Calabar, in a small stuffy office that smelled of cigarette smoke and old files, a man in a white coat was signing his name to a document that would destroy her life before that card ever left her hand. Mama Obiora walked into that kitchen with the confidence of a woman who had already won a war she had not yet declared. She placed the envelope on the kitchen counter between the bowl of beans and the bottle of groundnut oil, and she looked at Chisom the way a person looks at something they are about to throw away. Call your husband, she said. There is something he needs to see. Chisom wiped her hands on her apron and felt something cold move through her chest. Not fear exactly, more like the feeling of standing at the edge of something you cannot yet see the bottom of. Obiora came out from the parlor still holding his newspaper. He opened the envelope slowly. He read again, and the face of the man she had loved for 4 years, the face she had memorized in every light, in sleep and laughter and quiet Sunday mornings, that face became a wall. What is this? He said quietly. A medical report, his mother said, from Dr. Eze's clinic. I took her there 2 weeks ago while you were in Lagos for a routine check, and that is what they found. Chisom stared at the paper from across the kitchen. She could see words. She could see the clinic letterhead. She could see her own name. But none of it made sense because she was 3 months pregnant and she could feel it, feel the fullness of it, the quiet, extraordinary miracle of it sitting low in her body like a kept promise. Mama, I did not go to any clinic with you 2 weeks ago, Chisom said carefully. You forget things, Mama Obiora said simply. You have always been forgetful. And just like that, the war was declared. They fought for 2 days. 2 days of Chisom begging, explaining, pleading, pressing her own hands across her stomach and asking Obiora to simply feel, to simply place his palm there and let God do the rest of the explaining. He would not touch her. His mother had shown him other things too. A second opinion from another doctor she had arranged, a letter from an elder in their family church that she said confirmed what God had revealed to her in a dream, and the words of his uncle in Owerri who said a man must think of his lineage first before he thinks of his feelings. On the 3rd day, Obiora came to her with his eyes dry and his decision already buried deep behind them. I have spoken to my people, he said, and I have made my decision. Obiora, you will go back to your family in the morning. I will send something for your transport. The marriage cannot continue. Chisom stood very still. Outside, a generator hummed somewhere down the street. A child was laughing. Life was continuing at its normal pace, completely indifferent to the fact that her world was ending. I am pregnant, she said one final time, quietly, clearly. I am pregnant with your child, Obiora. Whatever you are about to do, know that you are doing it to your child also.
He looked at her, and for one moment, just one, she saw something flicker in his eyes. A crack, a hesitation. The ghost of the man she had married moving behind the wall he had built. Then, Mama Obiora's voice came from the parlor. Obiora, come and eat. The food is getting cold. The crack closed. Be ready by morning, he said, and he walked away. She left with a Ghana must go bag, a small purse with 11,000 naira, and a baby that nobody in that compound knew existed. She did not cry as the Okada carried her down the road. She had cried everything she had in that compound. What was left inside her was something quieter and harder. Not anger, not bitterness, not even grief. It was more like a kind of fierce stillness. The stillness of a woman who has been broken all the way down to her foundation and discovered that her foundation was not made of the things she thought. Her aunt, Mama Kachi, opened her door in Ikotekpene without a single question. She took one look at Chisom standing on her veranda with her bag and her flat stomach that was not yet showing to anyone who was not looking carefully, and she said, "Come inside, the soup is on the fire." That night, lying on the narrow bed in her back room, listening to the rain on the zinc roof, Chisom placed both hands on her stomach and she spoke to God. Not a long prayer, not a loud one, just 4 words said over and over in the dark like a woman planting something in soil she intends to water every single day. I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. She said it until she fell asleep. She said it when she woke up. She said it every day after that for the next 6 months as her body grew and the secret inside her grew with it, and the world that had thrown her away continued turning on its axis, completely unaware of what God was building in that back room in Ikotekpene. She delivered on a Tuesday in the government hospital in a room that smelled of antiseptic and old ceiling paint. No husband, no mother-in-law, no family members pressing into the corridor waiting for news. Just Mama Okachi holding one hand and a young nurse named Sister Philomena holding the other, and Chisom herself doing the most extraordinary and violent and sacred work a human body can do. When Sister Philomena said, "Push one more time, I can see the head," Chisom pushed with everything she had left, everything that Obiora's rejection had not taken, everything that the forged medical report had not been able to touch. A cry filled the room. Then another. Sister Philomena looked up with the widest eyes Chisom had ever seen on another person's face. "Mama," she said, "God gave you double." Twins, a boy and a girl. Both of them loud and furious and perfect. Both of them already fighting to be heard from their very first second in the world. She held them and she wept. Not from pain, not from exhaustion. She wept because she understood in that moment, with a clarity that went all the way through her, that God had not just answered her prayer, He had multiplied it. She named the boy Chukwebuka, God is great. She named the girl Adaize, daughter of the king. And she whispered to both of them, one at a time, her lips against their worn foreheads, "You are going to show the world exactly who your mother prayed to." The years that followed were not easy. Chisom would not let anyone tell you otherwise, and she would not let you romanticize them either. She sold fabric at the Wat Market in Calabar from a table she rented for 300 naira a day. She woke at 4 in the morning. She strapped one twin to her back while the other slept in a basket beside the table. When they grew too heavy to carry together, Mama Kachi watched them in the mornings and Chisom ran back by noon. She saved, she learned, she prayed. When Ebuka was 3, Chisom got a small loan from her cooperative and expanded to a proper stall. When the twins were 5, she was employing 2 girls to help her. When they started primary school, she was known throughout that market as Mama Twins, the woman with the quiet eyes and the sharp business sense and the smile that she kept ready but did not give away cheaply. Nobody in that market knew her full story. Nobody knew about Obiora or the forged results or the compound gate that closed on her face. She did not speak of it. She was too busy building to look backward.
But she prayed every single night. Not for revenge, not for Obiora to suffer. Just the same prayer she had been praying since that rainy night in Mama Kachi's back room. I trust you. Show them what you showed me. She did not know that God was already arranging the answer 12 years in advance. Adaize became a lawyer at 23. First class, University of Calabar.
She stood on that stage in her gown and her mother sitting in the third row in a brand new Ankara that she had bought from her own market, pressed her hand against her mouth and shook silently with a feeling that had no name in any language. Ebuka became a medical doctor at 24. He specialized in obstetrics, the medicine of pregnancy and birth, because he said from the time he was old enough to understand his own story, he wanted to make sure no woman was ever told a lie about her own womb again. On the afternoon they decided to find their father, it was Adaize who drove. Ebuka sat in the passenger seat. They had asked their mother's permission and she had given it after a long silence, and the only thing she said was, "Go with clean hearts. Whatever you find there is between you and God." They arrived at Obiora's compound in Calabar at 2 in the afternoon in 2 separate cars, Adaive in a white Camry, Ebuka in a dark blue Highlander. They had agreed they would arrive together. They were twins. They did everything together. The compound gate was open. A woman they did not recognize was sweeping the yard, Obiora's second wife they would later learn. She looked up when the 2 cars pulled in. She called for her husband. Obiora came out onto the veranda. He was older, grayer. He stood with the posture of a man carrying weight that had no visible shape. He looked at the young man and the young woman stepping out of those cars, and something happened in his face. Something slow and unstoppable, like a wall beginning to crack, not from a single blow, but from years and years of quiet pressure finally finding its moment. Ebuka looked exactly like him. The same jaw, the same height, the same way of standing with the left shoulder slightly higher than the right. Adaize looked exactly like Chisom, beautiful and composed, and watching him with eyes that had their mother's particular quality, the quality of someone who has already survived the worst you could do to them and is simply waiting for you to understand that. "Good afternoon, sir. My name is Chukwu Ebuka, and this is my sister Adaize. Our mother's name is Chisom." The broom fell from the second wife's hand. Obiora gripped the veranda. "We are not here for anything from you," Adaize said, her lawyer's voice, clear and unhurried, and carrying all the authority of a woman who has read every document in the room, including the ones you tried to hide. Obiora opened his mouth. Nothing came. "She prayed for you," Ebuka said simply, "every single night." "Night," she told us. "Not for you to suffer. She prayed for you to have peace. Because she said, a man who does what you did is a man who has no peace." The second wife quietly went inside. Obiora sat down on the veranda step. A grown man sitting in the dust of his own compound, reduced by the sight of 2 children he had thrown away with a forged piece of paper, now standing before him whole and accomplished and carrying their mother's God all over them. He began to weep. 3 days later, Mama Obiora came to hear the news. She was 71 now, and the sickness had been eating her for 2 years, but she still carried herself with the bearing of a woman who believed she had won everything. She had not expected what she found. She had not expected to walk into her son's compound and find a young doctor and a young lawyer sitting at the table on the veranda, comfortable and unhurried, their papers and their certificates arranged before them like quiet evidence of everything she had tried to prevent. She had not expected to see Obiora's face, a face that looked like a man who had been awake for 72 hours, carrying a truth he could no longer put down. "Ne," Obiora said quietly, "these are my children." Mama Obiora stood at the entrance to that compound for a long time. The gate she had walked through 100 times, the gate from which she had watched Chisom leave with her Ghana must go bag all those years ago, and had felt something she had told herself was satisfaction, but had always known in the place she never examined was something much darker. Her legs failed her. She did not collapse dramatically. She simply sat down where she was, right there at the gate, on the ground, the way very old people do when the body finally refuses to hold up a lie that the spirit has been tired of carrying for 12 years. Adaze rose from the table. She walked to the old woman. She knelt beside her and held her hand, this woman who had destroyed her mother's marriage and forged the document that had sent Chisom into the rain with nothing. Adaze held her hand because her mother had told her to go with a clean heart, and a clean heart does not withhold human dignity, even from the ones who withheld it from your mother. "It is all right, Mama," Adaze said quietly. And Mama Obiora wept the way a very old person weeps when they finally understand that the God they thought was not watching had in fact been watching everything. Chisom heard the full account of that day from both of her children when they returned home. She listened without interrupting. She sat in her chair in the parlor of the house she had bought with her own money, in the compound she had built with her What Market savings and her cooperative loans and her 4 o'clock mornings, and she listened to every detail. When Ibuka finished, the room was quiet. Then Chisom smiled. It was the particular smile of a woman who prayed 12 years into the dark and never stopped believing that the dark was not the end of the story. She said, "I want you both to understand something. What happened to me was not fair. What that woman did was wicked. What your father allowed was a failure he will carry. I am not asking you to pretend otherwise." She looked at both of them. "But I also need you to understand that I do not wake up bitter. Because the same night they closed that gate on me, I talked to God, and He told me, not in a loud voice, not in a dream, He told me in the quiet way He talks to people who have nothing left but Him. He told me, 'I see you, build.'" She pressed her hand to her chest. "So I built you. I built this house. I built this life. And now you are sitting in front of me, my doctor and my lawyer, in the house their mother built. And I need you to understand that that is not my achievement. That is my answered prayer." Adaze reached across and took her mother's hand. Outside, the evening was settling over Calabar. A generator hummed. A child laughed somewhere down the street. Life was continuing at its normal pace. But tonight, in this compound, in this parlor, the normal pace of life felt like the most extraordinary thing in the world. Chisom closed her eyes. "I trusted you," she said inside herself, "and you did not let them win. Some gates are closed to protect you from where you are, so God can walk you into where you are going. The woman they called Barren raised a doctor and a lawyer. The compound they drove her from could not contain what God was building, and the prayer she prayed alone in the dark became the testimony that silenced everyone who thought the story was over. It was never over. It was only beginning. If this story moved you, if you have ever been lied about, thrown out, or underestimated, type "I prayed" in the comments right now. Let Chisom know she is not alone. God is watching every gate that was closed on you, every forged document, every person who said you are finished when he had already written your next chapter. Subscribe to Gracious Folktales because every week we tell the stories of the women and men who prayed in the dark and watched God turn their pain into the greatest testimony the room had ever heard. Share this story with someone who needs to know their gate closing is not their story ending. Like, comment, "I prayed," subscribe, share. Gracious Folktales, where every story ends where God intended.